Theo was 8 years old and was terrified of spiders. He was afraid that a black widow spider would come into his bed at night and bite him, and he would die. He left the light on. He searched his room for spiders at night. He begged his parents to keep the windows closed. But Theo also had another thought. This was the belief that for him to be safe, the very last thing that he saw or heard or even thought about before falling asleep had to be his father saying to him, "Good night, son, and I love you very much." If that was the last thing, he would be safe. Otherwise, spider would get him and he would die. Now, admittedly, this does not make a lot of rational sense. All of our research indicates that spiders do not care if your father loves you very much or not. It does, however, make a kind of emotional sense, because a parent saying to a child, "I love you," can make that child feel safe. And so when Theo was going to sleep at night, he called his father into the room, and he said, "Dad, can you say good night, son, and I love you very much?" And his father felt good and said, "Of course, good night, son, and I love you very much," and he walked out. Theo tried to hold on to that safe feeling, but it takes time to fall asleep. And soon, another thought came along to ruin it, maybe even a thought about the spider. And so he called his father back into the room, and he said, "Dad, can you say it again?" And his father said it again and walked out, but then he called him back, said it again, walked out, called him back. I direct a child anxiety program at the Yale Child Study Center. And when I asked Theo's dad, "How many times are you actually saying, 'Good night, son, and I love you very much?' he averaged about 120 times per night. That is a solid 2 or 3 hours of going in and out of your kid's room to say, 'Good night, son, and I love you.' And let me tell you, it might start out, 'Good night, son, and I love you very much.' When you're at 120 times, it's more like, 'Good night, son. I wish I had a spider to throw on you.' These are 3 hours that you can't do anything else. All right, let's see. You got time for one more? Kelsey. Kelsey was very worried about health and illness. Her mind obsessed over images of her dad having a heart attack, or her mom getting COVID, or she herself getting pretty much anything. And when she had asked her dad for the millionth time if he was sure he wasn't going to have a heart attack, he said, "Of course not. I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm fit. Look, I can even do push-ups." And he did 10, 20 push-ups just to show that he's in great shape. But then Kelsey started wanting to see him do push-ups every day. This guy had not been this fit in his life. And when Kelsey's mom got fed up with taking and retaking Kelsey's temperature to prove she doesn't have a fever, she said, "I'm a nurse. I can see that you're fine. I see the sparkle in your eye, and it tells me that you're healthy." And then Kelsey started coming to her every day and saying, "Can you check for the sparkle in my eye? Do you see a sparkle in my eye?" What is happening in these families? Why are so many parents sucked in to their children's anxiety symptoms in these ways? It's a phenomenon called family accommodation. What it refers to are all of those changes that parents make in their own behavior to help their child not feel anxious. Family accommodation is present in almost every case of child anxiety. But even though parents are accommodating to help the child not be anxious, as they do that, more and more children tend to get more and more anxious over time. So today, I want to talk about why accommodation is so common, how it maintains rather than reducing anxiety, and how recognizing the role of accommodation opened the door to space an entirely new treatment for child anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder. But first, why? Why do so many parents find themselves sleeping next to a child with separation anxiety, or speaking in place of a child with social phobia, or washing their own hands compulsively because their child has OCD, or any one of the countless other examples that I encounter almost every day? Why is it so common? I will tell you that one. It has to do with a critical aspect of child anxiety, but one which has been largely overlooked in how we think about, understand, and treat these problems. You see, it turns out that human beings are mammals. I know, this is why you watch a TED Talk, so you can learn exciting new facts. But actually, that simple fact of our mammalian nature has some key relevance here. Because mammals are born not really ready for life. They're not able to protect themselves. They rely on caregivers for protection. Look, think about what would happen if you were to walk up to an adult, a stranger, say, and you were to frighten them. They would have a fight or flight response. They might confront you, or they might get away from you. But what about if you were to walk up to somebody's baby and scare them? To be clear, I am not suggesting that you scare babies in the name of science. I have learned that this is not a great way to make new friends. But if you did, that baby would do neither fight nor flight. They're not equipped for it. We know what the baby would do. The baby would cry really loud, and that crying would serve as a signal to the baby's parents to say, I'm in danger, I'm scared, you need to step in and get this creep away from me. And it's not only children who are hardwired to respond to fear by signaling caregivers, it's also parents who are hardwired and powerfully motivated to detect the cues of fear in their children and to step in and provide that protection and ultimately regulation and soothing. And what this means is that when we're thinking about children, anxiety is actually not a one-person phenomenon. It's an interpersonal system happening between child and parent. And so it's not that surprising that if a child has a disorder, like an anxiety disorder, where they chronically feel anxious, of course parents are going to get sucked in to responding to that anxiety through all of those accommodations. But how is it that even though they are bending over backward and working so hard to accommodate so the child won't be anxious, as they do it, children get more anxious rather than the opposite? Well, think about the message that a child is learning through those accommodations. Are they learning, anxiety is uncomfortable, but it passes and I can deal with it? No. The message is more like, I cannot handle my anxiety on my own. I need my parent to rescue me from it. You know, it's kind of a funny word, rescue. We usually associate it with really positive things, like bravery and heroism. But it's always the rescuer who is brave and heroic, not the one being rescued. You only need to be rescued because you're facing a danger you cannot cope with on your own. It is great to always have someone to rescue you, but to always need to be rescued, that is a really scary way to live. And parents can have a big impact on this kind of thinking. In a sense, a parent is a lot like a mirror that their child looks into to see who they are. And when they look in that mirror, and what they see reflected to them is a child who is helpless and weak and vulnerable in the face of anxiety, well, that's what they believe, and their anxiety gets worse. Think about how you would talk to a child who had a physical illness. Let's say something like diabetes. You would never sit that child down for a conversation and say, what a shame that you, of all children, have diabetes because, let's face it, you kind of suck at diabetes. You're just not really good at coping with it. You would never say that. You know they have to cope with this situation, with this illness, and you want them to believe they can. And when parents can show their child a reflection of themselves as strong and capable and able to handle anxiety, well, that's what the child believes. And their anxiety can get better. And that is not just wishful thinking. This paradigm shift in understanding anxiety as an interpersonal system and the pioneering research on the role of family accommodation led me to develop SPACE, or Supportive Parenting for Anxious Childhood Emotions. SPACE is a completely parent-based treatment for anxiety and OCD. What that means is, rather than a child going to sessions, parents go to sessions and learn how to change their behavior and how they are responding to that child's anxiety. Everything that happens in SPACE is about the parent's behavior. In fact, I make a simple promise to parents early on. I say, at no point in this whole treatment are you going to be asked to make your kid do anything, nor will you be asked to stop them from doing anything. But we're going to focus on how you are responding. And in particular, parents learn to make two critical changes: to be more supportive and less accommodating. Supportive in SPACE means that you're responding to your child in a way that shows them both acceptance of their genuine distress, along with confidence in that child's ability to tolerate that distress. For Theo, that might mean his dad saying, I get how scared you are about spiders. And I'm 100% sure you can handle that fear. Or Kelsey's mom could say, I know how worried you are about getting sick. And I'm sure you can handle that worry. The second change that parents learn to make is to reduce those accommodations. Not all at once, but bit by bit, gradually, step by step, with careful planning. They can reduce the accommodation and move from that role of rescuer of their child to a more supportive role. And as they do, children get better. For Kelsey, that meant her mom gradually limiting the number of times she would take her temperature and believing that Kelsey would be okay, even if she really, really wanted her to check again. Findings from clinical trials show that SPACE is as effective as working directly with a child in therapy. And of course, for some children who can't or maybe won't work directly in therapy themselves, it can be pretty much the only option. When Theo's dad stopped going in and out of his room and limited his I love you to one per night, they had some difficult nights. But Theo came to see that he could handle that fear. And once he believed that, he was well on the way to overcoming it. So that is how changing our understanding of how anxiety works in children and acknowledging the role of accommodation opened the door to a new treatment that is changing the lives of children and parents affected by anxiety. And if you are the parent of a child who struggles with anxiety, you may be able to help them to overcome it. Because remember, the world is full of children who used to have an anxiety disorder. Thank you.